The Reverend. The Reverend. The Reverend. Hello and welcome to the third episode about this car called the Reverend. Although it's actually the first episode because it didn't used to be called the Reverend. Anyway, someone's going to get confused by this and it's not me, so I'll stop. Just talk about what I'm going to do. This is a very, very nice car. It's very tidy. It's very silver. But there's just one thing I'm not massively keen on, besides it being silver, and besides it being a project drive car. And that is, it doesn't really feel to be boosting quite as good as it should do. It feels a bit unresponsive. It feels a bit lazy. It feels a bit, I don't really want to do this. So, having investigated a few other things, now I'm going to check that top boost pipe. This one, the pipe that always rubs against that. Oh, and as we can see, we might be able to see there's some stickiness between the two pipes because they're resting on each other. But I'm going to take the pipe off and have a look. This boost pipe is exceedingly oily on the outside. Why? I don't know. I can't find a split in it anywhere. Why would it be oily on the outside? There's no source of oil anywhere else. Well, I mean, it is close to the engine, but I can't see why it would happen. It does feel quite soft, but it was properly attached. I can't see why there'd be a problem with it. However, I once had a lovely little L series called Eric that sadly ended up in an accident. It was written off and it retired and now has gone. But I've got a couple of bits left over. One of them is, of course, the boost pipe. So I'm going to fit that, and here it is. Will it make any difference? Probably not, but I'm going to give it a go anyway. Now look over there. You can see the Reverend with the sort of corner stuck up in the air. That's because I've decided that probably the solution and probably the problem is most likely to be not the boost pipe, because they're fine, everything's as it should be, but definitely does not have the right sound to it. So I think that the cat is blocked. Something that can happen with diesel cars that don't really get a great deal of use. Simple solution. Take it off, or at least undo it to let the flow of, well, gases through a bit easier. And then I can find out whether that needs replacing or whether it's just not the problem at all. Not being quite as quick as I think it should be isn't a massive problem. But whilst underneath the car, I did find something that might be. This is such a nice condition car, but next time you have a tap underneath, use metal, not your fist. The 45 and ZS are indeed vulnerable for floor pan rot, and when this came to me the other week, I climbed underneath, had a good tap about and thought, well, it's brown, but it's okay, it just needs a clean up. But today, whilst I was under there with a socket anyway, I couldn't help but just have a little knock. And this is what I should have done in the first place, possibly. It's nobody's fault, it's just what happens with them. Well, it's my fault. Fortunately, all of that rust there has come from here, which you can see now has actually got a hole in it. Recently, I sold a car called Fred the Shed to a friend of mine called Rob, and Fred is undergoing a full restoration. Now that is relevant to this video because what Rob did was he went underneath the car and he went for all of the vulnerable spots because the car looked solid, but he wanted to make sure that it wasn't hiding something. So he took out the arch liners. He had a good dig, and what he found is that it was actually solid. But that's not what I did with this. I mean, just look at this car. There's not a but on it, is there? How would you possibly consider that underneath here may well be hiding a couple of nasties? What does this mean for this car? Well, it means that obviously, had I looked this far, I wouldn't have taken it on. But that's too late. The deal is done, and I'm not going to complain at anybody because that's not the way it works. I just simply got to take it on the chin. I need it. I need a good whack in the chin, I can tell you. Not a real one, just a metaphorical whack in the face with a halibut. What next then? Well, the simple answer is I'm not going to worry about it. The only thing is this car doesn't have an awful lot of MOT on it. For some reason I thought it was close on a year, but it's not. It's about 3 months. So that gives me a bit of time to use it and enjoy it. And then after that, or even before that. You see, the problem with this car is because it's a diesel, it's a no-brainer to keep on the road. It's cheaper tax, it's cheaper to run. Well, I mean, almost. It's not as good on fuel as it should be, and I'd put that down to possibly a blocked cat as well. And being as I would really enjoy being back in Harry Seacombe again next month, I think what I'm going to do is, oh, who's this? Strip it down next month. And I don't mean strip it down for parts. No, I'm going to take off the skirts, I'm going to take out the inner arches, and I'm going to find out the extent of the corrosion. Pull the carpet up. I'm going to see if I can do it myself. It'll be an interesting video challenge, won't it? Yeah? And with that there, it's like the worse it is, the better in some ways, because it means more of, if it's really bad, then I have this lovely big challenge on there that will make a more rewarding video for you to watch. So I'm doing it for you. That means that not only am I making the most out of a bad situation, but I'm almost glad it's happened. That bit's not true. Nothing is beyond repair. Maybe I should jack up the other side and have a closer look at that as well. Yep, I think that's a bit buggered. Shite. Both. Yeah, this one's got a hole in it as well. It doesn't look as bad, but it was holding an awful lot of water. Look at that big puddle. That big puddle just came out of the floor pan. On the face of it, it doesn't look too bad. It's a patch there, and it's a patch on the other side. No big deal. The only thing is, when I take off the inner arch, the mud flap and that skirt along there, will there be more? Or will there be none? A year back, or maybe 2, in fact probably 3 years back to be precise, I acquired a 45 hatchback in a really interesting green-blue colour. Can't remember what it's called. And it had about 3 months MOT left on it, just like this one. But on closer inspection, the corrosion had gone through the floor, and you could see the floor through the wheel arch. It was that bad. But I just thought that's an awful lot of corrosion to happen in 9 months. So there's a fairly good possibility it might just have had an ever so slightly hooky MOT. I decided that there's no way I can sell it, and I made the decision that I couldn't sell the car. And I couldn't repair it, and so it just went to bits. These days I'm a bit more brave and clearly a lot more stupid, so I'm just going to see what happens. I'm going to leave this episode right here on this particular kind of cliffhanger, I suppose. I'd already made the decision that Allison, my MGF, is a car that I'm now going to keep because they're just not worth very much. But you can't beat them for something fun to drive for almost next to no money. And that means that cars like this, as much of a no-brainer it is to keep, would have just been up for sale. But now, that can't really happen, can it? I'm going to have to hang on to it till I do any work for a new MOT in a couple of months. But at least I've got a plan. I'm going to have to stick with it. So thank you very much for watching this video today, and thank you for liking it, and thank you for subscribing, and thank you for being a channel member especially. And I will see you again in another video with something more positive going on.